Alright, so the purpose of this video is to look at how to make complex shapes in Oneshape by joining together several different parts into one body. In our first video, we looked at how to make a simple name tag. We made a flat 2D sketch in Oneshape, and then we extruded that flat 2D shape into a one-piece 3D object. Once you know how to do that, that's pretty simple because it's really just one part. But sometimes your three-dimensional shapes are going to be more complicated, so you're going to have to make several different parts for different bits of your design and then join them together. So that's what we're going to try to do in this video. So what I'm going to do is make a doorstop, right? Just a simple doorstop. So once it opens, the first thing I have to do, if I think about a doorstop, it's got like three bits to it. It's got the wedge part to it. It's got like a knob on the end that you can grab, and then we're going to have something to join the wedge and the knob together. Alright, so what I'll do is I'm going to start my first sketch. That's going to be the wedge part of it, and I'm going to do that on the front work plane. So I go to where it says sketch, click on the front work plane, and then I'm also going to click on this cube here, so I'm facing directly towards the front. And from there, I'm going to get myself a rectangle like that. And I'll make it like 120 wide and maybe like 25 tall. So that's going to be the main body of my doorstop, but it really needs to be kind of like a wedge shape, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a point there and then a point there. And I'm going to join those 2 points together with a straight line, and that's going to be my wedge. I'm not going to have a sharp point there because, you know, let's say I did want to 3D print it, sharp corners tend to snap fairly easily because it's made out of plastic, so it's not super strong. So I won't have a perfectly flat end to it. I'll just have a little bit of the diagonal parts that's a little bit in from the end, like that. Now, I'll draw a straight line between those 2 points, like that. But before I go on and get rid of the other bits to make the wedge shape, when I make a design, sometimes I won't know if I'm happy with the dimensions of that design or not until later on. So what I want to do is set this up in a way that if I feel like the wedge needs to be at a steeper angle or a shallower angle, I can change that pretty easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the dimension tool, and I'm going to click at that end of the wedge and this corner here, and that's going to be the distance from the end of the doorstop to where the diagonal part begins. So at the moment it's just a random number. I might make it like 40, like that. And because that's now a dimension, if I wasn't happy with the 40 later on, I could go back, double click on that, and then type a different number in to change it. Similarly over here, I'm going to get my dimension tool again, click there, and that's my little bit on the end there. So I'm going to make that 4. And again, if I didn't like that, because it's a dimension, I can go back and change it if I want. So now I'm going to get my scissors, the trim tool, and I'm going to cut out these bits here and here. And then that's going to be my wedge shape. So I'm happy with my sketch as it stands. Might just move that dimension over there so it looks prettier. There we go. So I'm going to tick that. And now I've got my finished sketch. I'm going to extrude it. And now I just have to work out how wide it needs to be. And I'm going to make it 20 wide. Again, actually let's make it 25. Again, if I wasn't happy with that, if I want to change it later on, I could go to extrude 1 because that's the first extrude I just did then. And I could right click, go to edit, and change the number here to make it thicker or thinner. But that's good enough for now. Next thing is to have a little bit that pokes out the end here that I'm going to attach a knob to. So I'm going to put a cylinder on the end, and then I'm going to attach a sphere to the end of that cylinder to make a little knob I can grab onto. So I want the cylinder to come out from here and come out this way, like I'm moving with my mouse. So the easiest way of doing that is to make a different part on a new work plane. So if I want the cylinder to come out this way, I should really make it on this work plane, the one that says right. So now I'm looking at where I want the circle to come out from. I'm going to make a new sketch. And I'm just going to make another circle. And this, I'll make it like 15 wide. Again, if I don't like that, I can change it later on. Then I'm going to press tick on that, and I'm going to extrude it. So this is going to be the knob that goes onto the end. That's probably a little bit too long, so I might make it like, I don't know, 15 or something. And then press tick there. Okay, now that's going to go on the end here. So there's a couple of different ways of joining things together. The most accurate way of doing it is using a thing called a mate connector. So if you want to move objects around and line them up with different objects, the transform one is the one you want. This one here with the two little boxes on it and the arrows. So I go to transform. There's lots of different transforms that we can do. I'm going to pick the one that says transform by mate connectors. The next step is to click on the thing that I want to move or transform. Transform is just a fancy name for move. So I want to move this grey cylinder here down to there so it can connect to the back of the doorstep. So I'm going to click on that. And then down here I've got transform from mate connector to mate connector. So I click on the mate connector thing. And a mate connector is like a little sticker that you stick on the shape. Now you can do it manually, or if you move your cursor over the shape, it'll give you different parts you can do. Like I can attach it to the end there. That's that little weird thing with the blue, the green and the red thing sticking out. That's the mate connector, right? I can stick it there. I can stick it on the side. I can stick it on the other end, right? So what I want to do is I want to stick it on this end. And the blue, green and red lines are like the X, Y and Z axes. So all I need to know for now is I want the blue end to point outwards like that. And then I'm going to put another mate connector in the center of this end here because that's where I want the cylinder to go. Once I've done that, this is where it can be a bit fiddly sometimes. So it's moved the cylinder down to there, but it's the wrong way around. The cylinder's pointing into the door wedge we want to stick out. So that's where this thing comes in. These arrows here, these two icons here can move it around. So I'm going to go for flip primary axis. So rather than facing in, now it's facing out. So that looks pretty good. That's what I want. So now I go tick. It's not one part yet because they're still they're different colors, which means they're separate parts, part 1, part 2. But I can fix that in a second. So now I just need like a sphere or a knob that I can stick on the end, right? Alright, so I'm going to make my sphere here as well. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. You would think making a simple shape like a sphere would be really easy, but in reality it's not. So what I'm going to do to make a sphere is I'll start off by making a circle, and I'm going to make that circle a little bit bigger than the cylinder, but not as big as the door wedge. Now the door wedge was like 25 wide, I think, so we're not going to make it that big. Let's make it like 22 or something. Alright, so at the moment that's just a circle. Actually, let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's make it, whoop. I'll go back to my dimension and I'll make it 20 instead. Alright. So that's just a circle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a thing called the revolve tool to spin it around. So to get the revolve tool going, I'm going to put a line down the middle like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin one half of this circle around that axis, and that should make a sphere. Okay? So I'll go tick on that. The revolve tool is this one here, where my cursor is. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on one side of our sphere, and it's going to spin that part 360 degrees. And by spinning that 360 degrees, you've turned this flat circle into a round sphere. So I need a revolve axis. I need a straight line to spin the round, which would be the line that we just put in the center. Without a line through the middle, I can't spin it. So that looks pretty good. Now I've got if I use my mouse to move around. Now I've got a sphere. So that's done. Alright, so now I just need to move that sphere onto the end of the cylinder. So I'm going to do that by going to transform again. I'm going to click on the sphere because that's the thing I want to move, part 3. I want to transform by make connectors, and I'm going to put one of these make connectors on the... Oh, is it going to do it for me? Yeah, that'll do. I'll put it in the middle, and then I'm going to put the other make connector here. Now it's done that. So that's okay. It's probably alright like that. But let's suppose it wasn't. Let's suppose we don't want the sphere to go that much into the cylinder. So in that case, I'd go, yep, and then I'd do one more transform. So click on that again, and now I'm going to do transform by X, Y, Z. So when you do that, then it comes up with this, which is called a triad manipulator, if you want the fancy name. It's just basically 3 arrows you can use to move it up and down. So if I grab this arrow here, I can drag my sphere in and out. I can do that by hand, or I could also just type whatever number I wanted into here. So that looks pretty good. That looks probably more like what I want. So I'm going to press tick from there. And then that is looking pretty good for a doorstop. I might just do one more thing and maybe put a chamfer, also known as a beveled edge, on some of these, right? So I could also just do that. And what it does is it kind of smooths out the edges, gets rid of some of the sharp edges there. So I could do that if I wanted to. Whoops. So I could do that too if I want to, if I want a slightly smoother design. But the last thing I need to do really is just join these 3 parts together, part 1, part 2, part 3, so they're all one part and they're all the same color. And then if I wanted to like manufacture that, like 3D print it, then I'm good. But if I try to 3D print or laser cut or whatever you're trying to do, separate parts, because they're not one object, it doesn't work very well generally. So you might remember in the first video, the way we do this is we go to this guy here called Boolean, and we want union, which means to join things together, and we want to just click on each of the 3 parts. When we do that, they will all change the same color. Then we will press tick. Now that's just a single object. So we could then, as we showed you last time, if we wanted to 3D print this, right click where it says part 1 down the bottom, go to export, give it a name, make sure it's set to SDL because that's what most 3D printers read, and then press export. You'll download a file which can then be used to 3D print. Alright, so pretty simple stuff. It's just that with an object like this, because they're all pointing in different directions, like it's hard, it would have been really, really, really difficult to do this as a single sketch. So instead we did 3 different sketches, one for each of the different parts, and then joined them together. Okay, hopefully that helps.